Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Triple Play, that podcast that's in the Xander Zone. Guess this week we watched XXx.
Written by Richard Wilkes, Simon Kinberg, and F. Scott Fitzgerald. No, F. Scott Fraser.
That would be a twist. Directed by Rob Cohen, Lee Tamahori, and DJ Caruso. I looked up his name, how to pronounce it, before we started.
Heck yeah. I definitely would have just said Tamahori.
Yeah, me too.
And, yeah. And released in 2002, 2005, and 2017.
I also took specific notes on how to pronounce. Okay, let me actually look at my note. Deepika Padukone. How to pronounce her name? Padukone.
Yeah, I guess you hear a little IPA, notation, perhaps, noted down in your notes.
No, I've got phonetic spelling in my notes.
Gotcha.
The IPA for her name was in the Hindu IPA, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get this right.
Oh, so it's like HPA, Hindi phonetic.
Something like that.
Because the I is international. So.
Well, anyway, at least on her Wikipedia page. I don't know why this is why we decided, how I decided to start this episode off with. Yeah, because if you click on the little pronunciation guide on Wikipedia, it takes IPA/Hindi and Urdu, and then it gives you English approximations of the IPA characters, and some of them are non-Latin alphabet characters. So I was like, just write down a phonetic spelling. Thanks. There's an eta in there. There's an upside down omega. I was like, I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, I don't even know what those are. Well, here we are, having watched XXx.
Yeah, so we normally start with how many times we've seen this, but I also want to mention that we haven't recorded one of these episodes in, it's month 11, 7 months.
Yeah.
I feel like the best option here is to be completely transparent with the fact that this season of Triple Play has been recorded over the span of January to November of 2020. So there is some variety in both our, shall we say, fed-upness with the world outside, and also audio quality, because 2 of the episodes were recorded in person. 2 of the, remaining 4 were recorded at the start of quarantine, and then the remaining 2 were recorded, not at the end of quarantine, because it seems like this is just the rest of our life, but late in the quarantine.
Yeah. And we even started, I think we watched the first of the trilogies in December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we didn't find a time to record it for 2 weeks.
Right. So this has basically been a year in the making almost.
So it should be the best season of Triple Play is what we're saying.
Well, maybe we should rephrase that as a year in development hell, or a pre-production hell,
I think in the Taken episode we mentioned how half the episodes or more of the season will be recorded in quarantine, because we were assuming we were going to just record the remaining 4 episodes right then and there when we did Taken at the beginning of quarantine, but then Inevitable hit us hard, and we were struggling to find time to watch the movies for this podcast, so we had to put that on hold.
Right. But anyway, enough sort of behind-the-scenes stuff. I haven't watched any of these movies, but I hadn't watched them before, and now that I've watched them, I hope I never watch them again.
I had watched... oh, God. This is embarrassing to admit. I had watched the third one before already, in its entirety. Found it to be dumb fun. And it is. It's dumb fun, really. That's what kind of all 3 of these movies are, sort of. I watched it in a theater, paid good damn money to see it, and that was back when Movie Pass was a thing, so I didn't really pay out of pocket the $15 to see it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't that when you were watching almost every movie that hit the theaters?
Yeah, that was back when theaters were still open and I could do that. I basically did that right up until the theaters closed. I was seeing a movie a week. Every week there was a movie that came out that I saw.
Huh.
So my movie knowledge for 2017 through 2020 or 2019 really is pretty well filled out. the weird thing about like I guess the way that my brain just categorizes movies is that I sometimes have difficulty remembering like off the cuff specifics about random movies. But if someone gives me like the name of a movie, then I'll generally remember things that happen in that movie. Some people like have the ability to just recall things that happen in movies and be like, "Oh, this is just like X, Y, and Z movie." When like I seem to struggle to be able to make those connections. But if you say that, then I'll remember the scene. I'll be like, "Ah, yeah, you're right." I don't know.
Yeah, just really supply that spark there and watch the fire ignite type thing.
Well, it's like the movie The Foreigner. I don't necessarily remember every plot point of The Foreigner, but I remember, if I think about it, then I can remember like quite a bit of it. So I don't know. I feel like seeing so many movies gave me a sort of scale on which, bad movies to good movies. And let me tell you, the first two movies here are, they're not good. The third one is not good either, but I have a slightly higher opinion of the third one than the other two.
The third one had some. We'll get there, but the third one had some. It had some cool action.
The third one, yeah, the third one had some cool action. It had actually good acting, and yeah, the plot kind of also didn't make sense, but it kind of got away with it almost.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but I mean, plot wise, the only one that really held up, and it wasn't even good, but it was the only one that like two and three were just like, what the hell was the story? Like, how did that even get to screen? Type thing. But one was like, it wasn't good, but it was like, okay, whatever. It's just a weird spy story.
Well, so I want to use that as a segue actually into talking about the conception of the first movie and how the plot even came to be, because the first movie was conceived as sort of an anti-James Bond
Yeah.
movie, which is the weirdest thing I've ever freaking read. Is a Triple X, the Triple X franchise was the anti-James Bond. But just to provide a little context for that statement, James Bond was since it began had always been a little bit campy, but as it went on through the Roger Moore era, it got increasingly more campy. And in the Timothy Dalton movies, so License to Kill and I'm forgetting the other one now. View to a Kill.
I have no
I
idea.
think it's A View to a Kill. Were more serious, more kind of grounded, and it was more of an attempt to bring Bond kind of back to like Dr. No and Goldfinger, which are campy because of the time they were made, but in reality are actually like pretty serious, especially compared to some of the later Bond movies. And both of those movies with Timothy Dalton didn't do super well at the box office, and then it kind of went into development hell for a while, and then we got Pierce Brosnan when they really went back to campy. GoldenEye was very grounded, but then like World Is Not Enough, Tomorrow Never Dies were super campy, and then Die Another Day, which actually released the same year as the first Triple X, and which has another weird connection to a later Triple X movie, which we'll get to, was like the epitome of Bond campiness. So kind of this framework that they're saying, we're looking for the anti-James Bond, is this framework where James Bond has always been this movie series that's about spies, but was never really very grounded, was always very fantastic in a way. Like there is definitely, like I would consider a lot of the Bond movies, probably in fact like the vast majority of them, to be in some way science fiction.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I obviously don't know too much about James Bond, so that context there, I guess, is good. I mean, when I heard that, I just thought it was like, because at the beginning of Triple X1, where you see this spy kind of fail to do anything to what was Anarchy 99, I think it was the
yeah
mm-hmm. And he was kind of the James Bond like spy. He's wearing the suit, and he's just old school. And whereas Triple X, right, is sort of this, he does extreme sports, and he basically does everything that's cool, that was cool in like the early 2000s. So he's like this sort of new wave, I guess.
Well, I read that was no accident, that actually that it was playing into this like anti-James Bond, shall we say, vein that they were trying to tap into. And the reason why I bring up like so much about the James Bond campiness history is because they went into this movie knowing it was just going to be like a commercial Hollywood kind of movie that was campy and corny, but commercially marketable and intense and adrenaline packed. And I watched an interview with Rob Owen, and mad respect to the guy for just being able to fully admit this. But he literally just says, look, in Hollywood, commerciality is survival. I'm a commercial filmmaker. I make movies to make money. That's what I do. I enjoy doing it, and I like it when the audience just has fun with the movie. I'm not out here making like the next Citizen Kane. He doesn't say the bit about making the next Citizen Kane, but he does say that he just likes it when moviegoers enjoy his movies. And mad respect to the guy for just admitting that he's just, he makes movies that Hollywood pays him to make, and he just makes them to be fun action movies.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say I respect that, but we don't need to dwell on that.
I don't. I mean, I want to make a distinction. I'm not saying that I respect that he does that. I respect him for being able to say that he does that out loud. I want to make that distinction pretty clear.
That makes sense though, because Robert Cohen, or Rob Cohen, I don't know how people tend to refer to him, was a producer before he was a director. I think most of his career was actually as a producer, or maybe I guess half of it now, because it's been 20 years since he started directing, basically, or a little more.
Yeah, he does. Even though in this interview he talks about how he's just a commercial filmmaker, I do think he does, in some way, care about the script he's making and whether or not the script will be good. Because part of the reason he didn't do Fast and the Furious 2, and part of the reason why he doesn't come back for XXX 2, is because of the scripts.
Yeah, and lo and behold, XXX 2 bombed.
Well, we'll get to XXX 2 because I have things to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so XXX is, interestingly, because they're doing this anti-James Bond thing, is actually, I think, one of the first movies that starts this trend that became kind of a thing in Hollywood for a while, where like secret intelligence agencies, paramilitary organizations would always be like, we have to recruit someone on the outside. And I think that actually did start with XXX. Like, that is where that started, and it starts because they explicitly were trying to do that.
Huh, I didn't know that. Yeah, maybe that's... I'm trying to think. I know there were a lot of like... I remember as a kid watching several movies in the theater and just kind of being aware that there was this sort of almost, I guess XXX like spy thing. I mean, this was before like Marvel was the movie, or like, superhero movies were the ones that everyone was seeing and stuff. So there was like, what kind of big action movies were there in the mid 2000s? And it was like this kind of spy sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just making that up, but I mean, I seem to remember.
No, I mean, I definitely think that was a thing. Spy movies became really big in the mid 2000s, and then that was the impetus for Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
Because if we remember when we did the Bourne movies, we mentioned that part of the reason why Bourne Ultimatum, the first one, when they made it, they were like, we're going to try and make this a very grounded movie. And that was because spy movies at the time had become so campy. And part of that is because Bond was like the only spy franchise, and Bond had gotten incredibly campy. Die Another Day features Bond parasurfing down a tsunami. Like, you can't look at that and tell me that's grounded in any way. So, and I think XXX plays into that because it's explicitly not grounded, but also because it starts this trend where action movies or spy action thrillers about people who are outside the intelligence agency who get roped in somehow.
Right. And I mean, also it obviously taps into just everything that was like cool in like 2001. Like, he's an extreme sports guy. Like, he snowboards. He does like motocross stuff. Obviously drives a lot of fast cars.
He saves the day. He gets the woman, and he tries to look dope while doing it. I'm going to quote that for the rest of my life. That's just hilarious. They made this movie as like a spy movie, and again, like Rob Cohen saying he's a commercial film director, again, I think he's underplaying how much he cares about the movie, because there's another interview where him and Vin Diesel both say like they wanted... The reason why Vin Diesel is the main character is because, one, he's not like the typical handsome Hollywood leading man, but two, because he's not white. and they wanted to kind of portray this, idea that anybody could be a spy. Long before this was like a huge thing movies were doing, XXX was like, we want, anybody could be a spy. James Bond is a white British male guy, and we want like anyone to think they can be a spy. And that's part of the reason why they cast Ice Cube in the sequels, was to continue that. But
Yeah, I mean, I looked up a lot about Vin Diesel for this, and he's a very interesting guy. I'd never really known too much about his sort of story as an actor. I knew that like Spielberg, I knew he had some sort of relationship with Spielberg, and that's kind of how he was put on the map. But like, yeah, I mean, apparently, I know we joked about this on Trust Your Doctor, our Doctor Who podcast, but like, yeah, one of Amazon's X-ray facts for this is that this is Vin Diesel's first leading role, which is not true. Even if you don't consider his role in the Fast and the Furious 1 as a leading one, which I guess it's not. I mean, he's kind of. I've seen him as like, or I've always seen him as like being as equally a main character as Paul Walker's character in the first one, but maybe not. I don't know. But like even before that, he had the leading role in movies that he created himself. He created a short film that was like semi-autobiographical, which he wrote, directed, produced, starred in, all that. And then he also did another similar movie, which I think was feature length, which again was him writing, directing, he's just doing everything. So yeah, I don't know where they got that from, but like, yeah, in the 90s, he was making his own movies. And I know this isn't directly related to XXX, but like, yeah, his backstory, I guess, which I actually found more fascinating than the making of XXX itself, was that, I mean, he basically just moved to Hollywood trying to become an actor, and it just failed for many years until he finally moved back to New York, when apparently his mom bought him a book about how to make your own movies for cheap, and he started making his own movies, and that's when he kind of got noticed.
I think like technically his first leading role in what shall we say is not an indie production would actually be like, even if you exclude Fast and the Furious, which I think probably most people do, since Paul Walker was probably more of a main character in that movie, but whatever. Even before Fast and the Furious actually he played Riddick in the first Riddick movie, Pitch Black. So.
Oh, huh. When did that come out?
2000.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so cool.
So.
I don't even know, I've heard of that, but I don't even really know what it is. It's like based on a book, right? Or something?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's the Riddick book.
And he's some sort of like sci-fi bounty hunter or something like that.
Some sci-fi movie of some sort. Apparently not very good. There's 3 of them though, so...
Hey. Vin Diesel is a really good actor. I mean, you don't really associate him with like, being this super good, but he's a good actor. Like, and I don't know what happened in XXX1.
It was one of his earliest roles. You cut him a break.
He's like Fast and the Furious. The reason I don't cut him a break for this, or the reason I'm kind of perplexed by this rather, is that like he's damn good in the Fast and the Furious 1, and that is the same director, and it came out like less than a year before this.
I mean, I don't know. Everybody's allowed an off movie.
Yeah.
He's also apparently a really nice guy. Apparently everyone, well, actually, I won't say everyone. Most people who have worked with him said he's a really nice guy. He had a weird beef with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson after Furious 7, which, like, is weird because if you look at all the facts, it really does look like Vin Diesel comes out as the guy in the wrong with that whole thing.
Wasn't he just sort of... He was kind of put off by, like, once The Rock started being in the Fast and the Furious, it started making a lot more money. Wasn't that his...
Yeah, I mean, that was his beef, but I think, like, the reason why I say it kind of comes off like he's in the wrong is because, I don't think people ever really watched Fast and the Furious for Vin Diesel himself. They watched it for, like, cars and stuff, but people watched the later ones for The Rock because he's got, like, a cult personality following. And I guess it just came off like Vin Diesel had a higher opinion of himself than perhaps there's evidence for in terms of star power.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even after the Fast and the Furious 1. He wasn't even in. I think he came back for 4. Actually, I was gonna say he didn't come back until 5, but I think he
I
was in
think it
4.
was 4 because
Yeah,
he wasn't in 2 and he wasn't in Tokyo Drift.
yeah,
And then he came back in 4, which was Fast and Furious.
yeah. That whole franchise is just royally messed up. Like, if you take just the first 3, like you'd imagine that the only thread connecting them kind of is a few passing references and then just cars. Actually, he did. He was in a cameo, I think, in like the post credit sequence of Tokyo Drift or something.
Yeah, I'm looking at his thing and he has an uncredited cameo in Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I don't think people go to see movies because Vin
No.
Diesel is in them, but I think people go to see movies because The Rock is in them. And I'm sure there are dozens, if not hundreds, of explanations for why that is. But unfortunately, I think that just is the truth. And yeah. I mean, nobody saw Bloodshot that came out this year in 2020, and like Vin Diesel was the main character in that and was the main like draw, and like that movie was a box office bomb of royal proportions.
Yeah. I also found out in all of this that Vin Diesel's real name is Mark Sinclair, a way less cool name than his acting name.
Oh well.
And I knew Vin Diesel was an alias. Like, there's no way like that the stars would align and you would have this like cool and like I don't know, just metal in name as like Vin Diesel.
Oh, Vin Diesel.
I actually though couldn't find anything about how he was cast in this. I think the role was potentially created for him by Cohen with
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think part of the reason he was cast was because of the like, we want anybody to know that they could be a super spy, superhero. And Vin Diesel was, every couple of years, Hollywood has a young male star who's like just breaking into the scene. And they're the big hotness for 2 years. And they're like in every movie. And I think Vin Diesel was that at the time.
yeah,
Of
sure.
course, Vin Diesel manipulated that into a long career playing Dominic Toretto in Fast and the Furious movies forever. And, perhaps some other actors would have taken their franchises in a different direction or their career in a different direction. Jude Law was the new hotness, like at the end of the 90s, and then like basically vanished for half a dozen years, and now he's back and just acting in whatever, basically.
Well, similarly, I couldn't find casting information for basically anyone else either.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I couldn't either. I did learn that Vin Diesel did most of his own stunts, and in fact, there's only one stunt in the movie that he's not in, and the only reason he wasn't in it was because he was sick the day they filmed it. It was when the car careens off the. It was when the car goes off the bridge, and the guy, xXx Xavier, jumps out and parachutes down into the canyon.
yeah, just wait till the Return of Xander Cage, where it's like skateboarding through these roads, and it's like that's not Vin Diesel. You can see the guy's face, and it's not him.
The guy in the car who parachutes down is apparently wearing like a Vin Diesel mask.
Yeah, Vin Diesel prosthetic there. Yeah, cool.
But yeah, I did read that they CG'd Vin Diesel's face onto the skater in the third movie, or tried to.
Yeah, there's some
simple.
shots where it's like, yeah, it's clearly not him. But yeah, I mean, I think Cohen, after the fact, came out and was like, Vin Diesel wanted to do a lot for this movie, and he was actually disappointed with the amount that he was able to do, which was everything.
Yeah, Rob was like, he wanted to do more, and I had to be like, Vin, you gotta cool it. You gotta take a step back. Let's take it one step at a time.
Well, he almost did, speaking of cooling it, get put on ice for good, because in the snowboard scene, apparently he almost died. He landed head first and wasn't moving, but apparently was then okay.
Yeah, they thought that he had broken his
Yeah.
neck. Like, although speaking of someone eating it doing stunts, there was a stuntman who died in this movie. making this
Yeah,
movie.
in what's possibly the saddest way possible.
Yeah, so Harry O'Connor died at the end of the movie. There's a stunt where Xavier
Xander.
zip lines, yeah, Xander, sorry, zip lines down a parachute cord, and Harry O'Connor was the guy to do the job.
Uh, and he
And
did the job. They got the take, and then they wanted another take, so he did another take, and he died on the second take.
yeah, I don't remember exactly what happened. Something snapped or something broke, and he died, and he landed on his head and died, and something like that.
Yeah, apparently,
Apparently, 500 stuntmen were involved with this movie, and he unfortunately didn't make it out.
yeah, I read he just died on the spot. Like whatever it was, he was dead immediately. There's nothing they could have done.
The first take of the stunt made it into the movie.
Yeah, yeah. So the final like minutes, perhaps, of his life, depending on how close they did the takes, are in the movie. Wow.
Well, one, the throwback, I guess, to the Twilight Zone movie where, like, the lead actor of one of the segments and some kids got killed in a helicopter crash, and they kept basically all of that footage they shot in the movie except for their actual death. But that's a story for another time. But
Never
Harry
understood
O'Connor...
your style. Okay, sorry.
Harry O'Connor is memorialized in the character of Xander Cage. In the third movie, there's a shot that reveals that Xander Cage has a tattoo on the back of his calf that is like a car suspension, and it has Harry O'Connor's name written on it.
Huh. Cool.
The first time I saw that shot when I saw the movie in the theaters, I was like, who's Harry O'Connor? And then when I watched it now the second time, I'm like, I see. So,
Yeah.
apparently, in that final chase sequence, the Czech government just went all out. They were like, "You want one or two planes? How about I give you the whole Air Force to use for the shot?" And Rob was like, "All right, I'm not going to complain."
Yeah, they used a couple planes that were like going to be retired and were soon after.
So, that was pretty cool, I guess.
The only other bit that I could find, though, about casting was that there are actually a lot of extreme sports figures who appear at Xander's party at the beginning, I believe. Tony Hawk is there.
Tony Hawk.
And a bunch of other ones, too. Yeah.
If you don't follow Tony Hawk on Twitter, by the way, it's hilarious. Especially when he's always telling stories about how, like, he goes through the TSA and they're like, "Oh, your name's Tony Hawk, just like the pro skater, right?" And he's like, "Yep, just like him."
Yes.
Not like the guy in the line not realizing that he's talking to the Tony Hawk.
Yeah, my favorite one is when he's at a drive-through at like McDonald's and the guy's like, "Hey, you look just like Tony Hawk," and he turns to face him and he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "Well, from the side."
Tony Hawk still got it. He still skates.
Yeah,
I mean, not
so does Rodney
professionally,
Mullen. Like, doesn't Rodney Mullen still? Isn't he
think so,
still
yeah.
skating? Jesus,
I think
like
so.
60 years old, still on the board.
Hey, man, there was a drought in California, and
Was
anyway.
that specifically referencing Rodney Mullen?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, he basically invented skateboarding. So
Maybe Rodney Mullen is a XXX agent. I don't know. I mean, the third movie definitely reminds me of like X-Men 3, where they reveal that Andy Warhol is like an X-Men agent. Like the third movie of this movie kind of reminds me of that. Like any extreme sports player could be a XXX agent.
anyway, yeah, I couldn't really find out anything else about the making of. I mean, it seemed to just go smoothly, I guess. And there's no real big stories to come out of the movie. It's usually just because things go smoothly.
And because it's not some sort of hallmark of cinema that features a 5-hour documentary made about interviewing every person involved about every minute detail.
The movie did end up having a heavily licensed soundtrack, though. There's a lot of licensed music and just band songs used.
Well, the opening scene is a Rammstein concert, so featuring the actual band Rammstein performing one of their actual songs. and they used the footage of like their recording like as part of their music video for that song, like because they recorded it separately from the camera crew who recorded the actors doing their bit. Like Rammstein recorded their band performing the song and used that in their music video for the song.
Yeah, the credits sequence has a song by the lead singer of Bush.
All of the
So
bands that were famous in the early 2000s and like no one knows who they are anymore. Not Rammstein. Rammstein's still pretty famous, but like all the other bands were like, what, who is this?
yeah, there's definitely that like sort of punk like skater vibe kind of yeah throughout the whole thing, which is it fits. And the second, it was cool how they did it though, because the second one is like more hip hop as well. Tying back to how it's Ice Cube. Although I guess in that like paradigm, I don't know what connection Vin Diesel has with punk, but you know, makes sense I guess since since the character rather is sort of he's a skater and he's an extreme sports guy. So
yeah, I mean,
there's no ska like
damn.
Where's the ska at?
I've been really getting into ska recently, you know.
Oh my god. Maybe they just didn't include it because of the relationship between like ska and like white supremacy.
That yeah. Somebody once told me.
Oh my god.
I mean, maybe this is a controversial statement, but Smash Mouth is definitely like ska or ska adjacent.
Yeah, there's definitely ska adjacent. Yeah.
So, just saying. Just saying. What am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying.
I'm like, I don't really have a particular affinity for ska music or Smash Mouth, so. And in fact, I would say that most people in 2020 have also neither of those things.
Well, the best gateway to ska. I can't believe I'm talking about gateways to ska like it's some sort of gateway drug, but the gateway to ska is Real Big Fish's cover of Take On Me by Aha.
Oh my god.
I've never met a person who didn't find that cover A, totally hilarious, and B, kind of fun.
Well, every ska song is totally hilarious and kind of fun because like none of the singers can sing. And then you just have like you have the trumpets playing and you imagine they're just this like jubilant, like, I don't know, high school kids like playing their trumpets in the background.
Look, the Interrupters are a valid band, okay? In fact, the Interrupters cover of Billie Eilish's Bad Guy might even be better than the original.
Yeah, the last remaining ska band. They're like those last dinosaurs. Yeah, like, like the last, like, you got the KT boundary, the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary, and then you got some dinosaur fossils above that in the geological record, and that's what they are.
Oh, you're saying there's the ska boundary in the fossil record of music.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I can see that.
Yeah, they're like a bygone era. Kind of like how, the era that Ice Cube was from of rap, that sort of, I don't know, politically motivated, like late 80s, early 90s is now gone, I think. Or at least the sound is.
Yeah, I think it's more the sound. I think, like, I don't know. There are rap purists out there who say, like, rap's got to be anti-system. It's got to be political. And it's the same thing with, like, punk, And that's, like, I guess the catch-22 about punk especially is, like, punk, you have to be raging against the machine, so to speak. Like, that's why they're called Rage Against the Machine. Just you have to be, like, anti-system, anti-big money and everything. But then, like, the thing about punk is that there are a lot of punk purists who like the instant a punk band makes a successful album, they're no longer truly punk because they've become part of the machine. They've basically become rich and they're playing into the system, so they can no longer truly be anti-system because they're a part of it now.
Yeah.
I feel like there are some people like that for rap as well. Like even if the sound changes, a lot of people will define rap by like the anti X, Y, and Z message, whatever it may be. It's just the counterculture ness of it.
Yeah, is a fundamental part of it.
So, and that's why Eminem can continue making rap. I guess I don't know because he just continues to be counterculture.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ice Cube, freaking NWA to Are We There Yet?
Okay, there is an element of the like rap genre splintering off into subgenres, like how rap kind of evolved from hip hop. Rap itself has evolved into newer, more subgenres.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many genres of every style of music out there that you can't even keep up with all the pre, whatever they're called.
Personally, I'm a fan of German rap opera. Just made that up. There's an interesting site called everygenre.com that basically lists like every music genre they've ever discovered on a very interesting like visual display where genres are displayed closest to genres that are most similar to them in like two-dimensional space, and then you can click on a genre and it'll give you a sample of music from that genre, and then like also take you to a page with like sample artists who make music in that genre. It's a pretty fun website actually.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool.
But anyway, I guess since we're talking about Ice Cube, we should talk about XXX 2. So the first movie, let's just say it wasn't like a smash hit, like $1 billion smash hit, but it had a really good return on investment. 80 million in, 250 million out. That's pretty good. So they were like, we'll make a second one.
Yeah, so one last thing about the first one. Sony was really confident in this movie. I read that they put up a billboard for it in like a prime, I think, location in Los Angeles a year before it came out.
Jeez. That's some MGM at the end of the Bond movie being ballsy enough to put James Bond will return in like Her Majesty's Secret Service. Like being ballsy enough to in the previous movie announce not only that they're coming back with the next one, but even the name of the next one. Mm-hmm. Which led to some awkward cuts of the movies when they posted the name of the next movie, sent out the first cut of the movie to theaters. 3 weeks into the run, we're like, we're going to rename the movie to something different. Recut the final shot of the movie. James Bond will return. End of sentence. So anyway, XXX 2. State of the Union, also called The Next Level in the European home video releases.
Huh. I wonder why. Is that because like I
guess because the State of the Union address is a very American thing. The advertising for State of the Union, like the official one sheet poster, says, "Are you ready to go to the next level?" on it. So I guess that's where they took that from for those European releases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this one didn't have basically the two key players from the first one, which was the lead actor Vin Diesel and the director Rob Cohen. Both of them stepped back. Vin Diesel, I think at the time, said it was because he didn't want to work on too many sequels. He was already doing another Riddick. He didn't want to do Fast and the Furious 2, and he didn't want to do XXX 2 because he just didn't want to. He didn't want to do that many sequels. But I think more recently he's come out and said that he didn't care for the script.
Yeah, and that's also part of the reason why he agreed to come back to the third one, is because he said he didn't do justice to the character by not making a second one. That he basically left the character out high and dry, and that he felt like he should come back and set things right and do justice to Xander Cage.
Yeah, Cohen I think also gave his reason is he wasn't particularly fond of the script, and I think both of their complaints are justified. The script is well, I mean, it's pretty much garbage.
Well, Rob Cohen also was allegedly fed up with how long it was taking to make the movie because it did get delayed. So he went on to make a movie called Stealth. Stealth is a movie that tried to sort of be like Top Gun, but was apparently one of the biggest box office bombs in all of history. It lost. It lost $111 million.
Jesus.
Should Rob Cohen have stayed on XXX2, which was also a box office bomb, but not as much? I mean, if he wanted to make the most money, in hindsight, maybe he should have. But also,
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, like, at the time, a lot of the criticism for XXX2 came from the fact that it was less technically competent in its direction than the first XXX.
Which it is, I would say. But I think a lot of that is down to something weird, actually, that the writer of XXX2, Kinberg, mentioned, which is that he said, and I mean, obviously, this is just him saying it like after the fact, I guess, but like he was like, yeah, I wanted to put more action in the script and really have this be an action like packed adventure like the first one. But the producers cracked down hard and they wanted something more grounded and political.
Well, before I respond to that, did you recognize Simon Kinberg's name?
I didn't.
Well, let me tell you what he's written that we've already watched for this podcast. X3.
Okay. Hey.
He wrote X3, the movie that was critically panned by X-Men fans that I personally don't think is that bad. He also wrote and directed Dark Phoenix, which was him trying to do X3 again, only this time it was incompetently directed, horribly acted, and actually was like one of the worst X-Men movies I've ever seen. In fact, it probably is the worst X-Men movie, like by far.
Great. And
So
that,
suffice to
yeah.
say, I don't think personally that he's a great writer based on his track record.
No, I will say, like, obviously these three scripts aren't amazing, but they have their moments. Like, they have some funny banter. Honestly, like, had some of it had me smiling. You
So
know,
okay, State of the Union, I felt like State of the Union. Okay, the first one is definitely. I'm gonna just say this now. The first one is like the benchmark that I'm holding the other two up to in terms of script quality, which is a low benchmark, I'll admit. But just for the purposes of this conversation, that's the benchmark. Triple X 2 I felt like had the germ of ideas that could have been as good as the first Triple X, and it just needed like another month or two in the cooker to really flesh them out. But I mean, we didn't mention this, but there were actually two scripts in contention for Triple X 2.
right?
And I found this particularly interesting. They basically gave the pitch to like make the second Triple X movie to two different writers. One of them was
It was Wilkes, the guy from
Rich
the first
Wilkes, yeah,
one.
the guy who wrote the first one. That was the name I was looking for. Thank you. And then the other one was Kinberg. Apparently, Wilkes' script stuck a lot closer to the original conception of Triple X, which is that like an extreme sports athlete was recruited into this government program, and they would save the world on some scale. And it was set in Southeast Asia.
Kind of like Triple X3. What? Who said that?
Well, and then, like Rob Cohen, because there's a pretty interesting interview when Rob Cohen was still attached to direct. You know, the two scripts hadn't come in yet, and he said that, like, you know, he liked the Wilkes idea and that it stuck closer to the first one, but also he probably liked the Kinberg idea more because it took Triple X in a new direction. But he did say that the Wilkes idea was set in a much more beautiful place than Prague, which I think Prague is a very pretty city. But anyway.
Yeah, and obviously the one where Triple X is saving the U.S. is that's the one that got made for better or worse.
And this is what I find like so bizarre about the second Triple X is because the first Triple X was pitched as this anti-James Bond. It's like the everyman, and he's not saving the world from like a supervillain. He's saving it from literally it's a Czech gangster. That's who it is. He's a gangster who like wants to kill people. That's what he wants to do. James Bond is always this big supervillain who's got a plan to take over the world. But then the second one is like it becomes very nationalistic, which James Bond always was, because Bond is like the symbol of the UK for action movies. So the second one became very nationalistic because it was set in America and he's saving America specifically, and it also became very much like Willem Dafoe's character wants to take over the U.S. and potentially the world. He wants to like kill all of the adversaries to the U.S. He's very military minded and wants to do that. It's like the second one became everything that the first one was trying not to be. They even went and got the guy who directed Die Another Day to direct the second one.
Yeah, that's true. There is some like, I mean, it does have that like sort of political, not political, but like like the bite of like that commentary there, where I forget whatever the guy's name was, that guy who looked like the actor they cast for the character was way too young to be playing that character. One of the agents or one of the NSA people or whatever. Like, there's a line in that movie where he's like, he tells XXX he's gonna look like a criminal if he does something. He was like, "Yeah, I was born looking like a criminal." And
yeah. Christopher Steele, NSA agent Christopher Steele.
yeah, or Kyle Steele.
Kyle Christopher
yeah.
Steele.
Yeah, yeah. There's lines like that in this movie, which is like, oh, okay, like, yeah. I mean, people say Ice Cube is like a sellout, and on many levels he is. But like, I don't know. There's some connection there between like him and like this in his early career with kind of it's just it comes through in like those little lines like that. And it's not really a big thing in this movie, but hey.
After watching the movie and after reading this interview with Cohen, I kind of wonder if that was a bigger part of the original script and it got removed in favor of more action. Because when Rob Cohen talks about the two scripts that are still competing, like I guess right when the script was being written, he talks about how Kinberg's script takes it in a new direction, but also that it's more of like a political thriller, which in my mind, XXX2 is not. It's just an action movie with political leanings. But Cohen talks about it as if it was like specifically this political based thriller with political intrigue and like actual behind the scenes spy work and probably in my mind more of that political commentary, which like you said comes through in those lines every so often.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. So as for the casting, I think they specifically wanted Ice Cube once they knew that Vin Diesel was not going to come back. They actually, this is weird, I couldn't find much information about this, but they actually released a short film about how Xander Cage actually died. And they reference his death in the movie as well, so I think, yeah.
Apparently really disturbing.
Huh.
If you want, I can describe the plot to you.
Sure.
Because I read about it. But basically, so it features, Vin Diesel's not in it, but Vin Diesel's stunt double is. His body double. And they use archive audio of Vin Diesel. And so he's chilling with the girl he's with at the end of the first movie, whose name I'm forgetting.
Yeah, she's played by Asia
Yelena.
Argento, yeah.
Yeah, Yelena. And basically Yelena gets killed, I think, or kidnapped. And Xander has to save her, and he knows it's a trap. He goes into the building, and it blows up. And then we see like one of the henchmen for George Deckard, one of his henchmen who's in the movie, leans down, and the only thing that's left of XXX is like the skin from the back of his head with the XXX tattoo on.
Jeez, yeah.
And he picks it up, and he's like, yeah. And that's how it ends.
God. Wow.
So yeah.
And then they cast Ice Cube.
Well, so they wanted to kind of continue the like not getting people who would typically be cast as like spies. I mean, even through Jason Bourne, like it's a white middle-aged male, or not middle-aged, but like, late 30s male.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we don't want to do like the one thing they kept from the first movie, the original conception of XXX, was that they were like, we don't want to do that. So we'll cast Ice Cube. The second movie, I couldn't find anything about why they cast Willem Dafoe, but the second movie kind of falls victim to something that back when I was watching like a movie a week that I noticed, which is that a lot of the times if you're watching these movies that don't have a huge budget, but are like clearly not like indie movies, like XXX2, the budget was, I don't know, like 80 million. A lot of the times they only really have the budget for like 2, maybe 3 big name actors. and they always make two of them the hero, and then the third one is like the hero, but because he's the only other big name actor in the movie, you already know that he's the villain because they would never cast an unknown as the villain. So you already know the twist is coming. This happened in like The Foreigner. They've got Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan's like helping Jackie Chan out, but then like Pierce Brosnan's the only big noticeable name in the movie, so you're like, Pierce, he's the villain, right? And he was. And it's, I mean, it's not like a fault on the script or the movie makers necessarily, but it's just interesting to note that, you know, when you start watching so many movies and you recognize like who are the big name actors that are supposed to be the box office draw for the movie, and then you like get into the movie and like all three of the big name actors are heroes and then some unknown is the villain, you're like, okay, one of the big name actors is going to be a secret villain in the third act, and they always are, including in this movie.
It wasn't that late though. They didn't play like it was like maybe a quarter of the way
It
through the
was
movie.
45 minutes into the hour and 45-minute movie.
Fine.
It was roughly
so like
halfway.
halfway. All right. Well, I mean, you can already tell, because he's Willem Foe, that he's going to be the foe, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, I went for it. Went for that, plucked that low-hanging fruit right off the tree.
The third one even fell kind of into this trap where, like, they make Toni Collette, who is quite a well-known actress now for her acting in Hereditary and Knives Out, but was quite a big actor before that, the, like, replacement Gibbons character, and you're like, okay, so she's the villain, right? Because none of the other, like, hero spy characters are any name actors, right? So... And yeah, I mean,
They
kind of
are. Some of them are.
Okay, I mean, Angel Has Fallen was like the worst perpetrator of this. Angel Has Fallen was the third in the installment, you know, the Has Fallen series.
Yeah.
You know, it's a trilogy, so at some point we'll watch it for this podcast, and I'm about to spoil this for Keon, but I mean, when you watch the movie, again, like, the one big name actor is the villain, because, so the like, you watch the movie, and the big name actors are Gerard Butler, Morgan Freeman, and then shoot, who's the third one? I'm forgetting who the third one is. Let me just pull it up here, because there are only like three really big name actors in it. So, but the third one is like so obviously the villain, because Morgan Freeman is immediately put out of commission because he's in the hospital the whole movie, and Gerard Butler is the main character. So you're left with this third guy who, and in this movie, it's revealed very late that he's the villain. It's like in the final 30 minutes, they're like, he's the villain, and you're like, wow, I would never have guessed that the only other man in this movie who's even slightly famous, like, was the villain. Shocking. No, Danny Houston, or Huston. I don't know how you say that. So it's Gerard Butler, Danny Huston, and Morgan Freeman. You're sitting there and you're like, all right, so he's the villain, right? Yep, he's the villain. Yep. No surprise there. But anyway. Oh, wow. I just read on the Angel Has Fallen page, series producer announced plans for a fourth, fifth, and sixth film, as well as local language TV spin-offs.
Heck yeah.
What?
Looks like we're getting 2 episodes out of that trilogy.
You know, the Has Fallen trilogy is like my benchmark for really crappy movies that are just fun to watch. Not only because they're like incredibly dumb, but just because they're like they feel very low budget, even though they're clearly not. London Has Fallen stands as like the epitome of one of my favorite bad movies to watch, because it's like, it's not a good movie objectively, but I just have so much fun watching it flail around, try to be a good movie, and for that it's just hilarious. Anyway, I don't have anything else on xXx2.
Yeah, again, I mean, we kind of mentioned before, but they again, this has a lot of licensed music. They went for a more hip-hop sound this time.
For potentially obvious reasons?
Yeah.
That being that Ice Cube is like the hip hop artist slash rapper.
Yeah.
And then we get the third one. Again, Rob Cohen was attached to direct. Again, Rob Cohen left, although this time because it was taking so damn long to make the movie, he's like, I can do other
Yeah, this
things.
was supposed to come out in 2010. Didn't come out until
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah. The great thing about Vin Diesel being bald is that he doesn't look like he ages. Ever.
I mean, no, you can tell between XXX1 and the 15
Okay, but
years.
at least his hair is not going grey.
Well,
Well, so Jet Li was originally cast in the Donnie Yen part. But then because, again, the movie was taking so long to make, they were like, you know what? Guess we'll have to get someone else, because Jet Li was like, look, I can do other movies. Like, I want to keep making money, so I'm going to go make other movies. Because Donnie Yen at the time, and now still was well known because of the Ip Man series.
mm-hmm.
So,
Speaking,
Nina Dobrev, just as a fun fact, was only 13 when the first movie came out.
which I guess made her 28 in this one.
Yeah, she was about 28 when this movie came out. So it just kind of goes to show you how long it took between the first and the third movie.
Yeah, and they don't really make a point of this, but I was wondering if that was real time. Like, had Xander Cage been out of the action for 15 years in the movie?
None of these movies give a year date.
No, it could be any time. These could be in like 2150. We don't know.
It'd be kind of weird for him to not be live streaming in that first movie then, but instead like recording the footage to then put together later.
True. That would be weird, but maybe Xander Cage is just a weird guy.
I mean, yeah, true.
Speaking of people who should have been in this movie but weren't, a UFC fighter called Conor McGregor, who apparently is famous. I never heard of him. He was supposed to be.
I've heard of him.
He was supposed to be in the movie, but he was apparently going through some personal issues and just couldn't be in it, so he wasn't.
Yeah, he lost a big like championship fight right before they're supposed to start filming, and then and he was also having trouble at home with his wife, I believe I read. So, although speaking of personal issues, also the reason why Toby Lee Shavers, the nerd character, gets replaced in the third movie is because his actor Michael Roof actually ends up taking his own life between the second and the third movie.
Yeah, and I didn't know.
Pretty shortly after the second movie. It was 2009.
Yeah, it's like 4 years. I didn't know that he actually was a pretty big comedian. But yeah, apparently he was. He had his own Comedy Central show and everything. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I missed his presence in the third one. I think Nina Dobrev, or however you pronounce her name, her character was kind of the replacement for him, but I don't know. She didn't hold a candle to his character, in my opinion.
She didn't have the same energy.
No, yeah.
And the XXX3 is very much inspired by comic book movies. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but the like character intro splash screens are similar, if not identical, to the ones that are in Suicide Squad that came out in 2016. Weird. Perhaps weirder is the fact that I've watched both of those movies in theaters, like the week they released.
Yeah, I watched Suicide Squad in theaters as well, unfortunately.
The scene in this movie where Ice Cube shows up as Darius Stone has like big Avengers Endgame energy, so to speak.
Mm. That was the one thing in that entire like half an hour sequence that got me to like actually be like, whoa, okay, like start paying attention again, and then it was back to just like whatever.
It was the like most awesome moment. That entire 30 minutes was like, heck yeah, Darius Stone. I got weirdly attached to the characters in these movies, even though these movies suck. It's like, yeah, Darius Stone is back.
Yeah, the characters have a certain charm to them, in a way.
Like the characters are actually surprisingly well like fleshed out, and they have motivations. Like Xander Stone is an extreme sports athlete, but he's got a motivation that he's anti-system, and like he thinks that the government should work for everybody, and then it's not, and then it's like very imperialist. Darius Stone feels the same way because he's an ex-Navy SEAL, but he got burned as part of the government, so he's like very anti-system. They've all got like fleshed out motivations, which makes them feel real.
They're just in these like mostly inept, and in the case of two, like very inept stories.
Yeah, yes. Like even all the random side characters in the third one, like Tennyson and Nyx, like even they've all got like fleshed out characters in the even the like 30 minutes of screen time they get in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I was weirdly attached to Tennyson when he went out. And he's like, "Cover me," and he just goes charging out and immediately gets shot. I was like, "Oh God, please don't kill Tennyson off now." Thankfully they didn't, but you never know.
Yeah, like death is not the end in this franchise. Like you never know who's actually dead, who's coming back. You don't know. You can never be sure.
More so than in any other movie franchise. Like
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson's character, Augustus Gibbons, like fakes his death in 2 consecutive movies.
And no, okay, so I want to talk about like the story and stuff after the production, but like whatever, we're here, we're in the moment. Samuel L. Jackson's character dies in a fiery blaze. Just at the end of the movie, waltzes back on screen as if nothing happened. Never explained. Maybe they're saving that up their sleeve for XXX4, but it's a miracle. He's back and he doesn't like care that he should have died, and that's why he's like probably the most badass character from these movies. He's just like, yeah, I'm back. Got caught in the blast from the satellite, but I'm here.
I loved that moment for the complete nonsensicality of it that they never explain. Yeah, like you said, it makes no sense. He's just like, I faked my death, and then like the audience is left wondering, but how? We saw the fiery blaze engulf your body.
In that moment, I know this is stupid, but like in that moment, since he said that he faked his death, I kind of thought that like the satellite going down was his doing, and this entire thing was a test for Xander Cage, like the biggest test he'd ever been through. Because all the XXXs had tests, that were kind of just fake scenarios.
Yeah, why was Neymar so easy?
Yeah, getting an actual interview. Anyway, we're pretty much on XXX3 by now. So
we are on XXX3.
Yeah,
We've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah. Well, I never felt that we were officially for some reason. I know we've been talking about it for a while, but for some reason, I don't know. I just felt like we were never officially like on that wave. But
well, so apparently some of the stunts in this movie were inspired by real things. So the opening stunt, not the opening stunt, but the opening stunt Xander Cage pulls off is skiing through the jungle. And that apparently is a real thing. I watched a really interesting video. It's about 12 minutes long with the 4 guys. And they basically said, like, there are only 5 guys in the world who can ski through the jungle. And they're us.
And one of them is fictional. Xander
four
Cage.
Of them is, yeah, I mean, they were like 4 of us, 4 of them are right here. The 5th one, he's not here right now. And I think he's part of the same group, the 5th guy. But they basically invented this thing that they call, what do they call it, like non-snow ski, free skiing. They call it free skiing. We're just skiing on things which is not snow. And apparently once a year they make these like extreme sports kind of videos. And I think in 2015 or 2016 they made this video that was them skiing through the jungle and like off ramps that they had built in the jungle. And the producers of this movie saw it, and they actually contacted the guys who made the movie to make the stunt happen for the real movie. So, and they've got a very interesting video, and they talk about how they did it, how they the night before they filmed, they had a bunch of guys, like 20 or so guys, come out, cover the routes that they were going to take on the skis, and remove stones and small impediments that might screw you up. And they basically planned out the whole route like in advance, and how they did all of that. It's pretty interesting, actually. Obviously, as usual for Triple Play, that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
This video only has 1,000 views on YouTube because it's on some strange, obscure, I think, Chinese channel. This is the same channel that uploaded it. Was this? I think this is the same channel that... Yeah, this is the same channel that uploaded a behind the scenes of Return of Xander Cage, and it was just an interview with Rob Cohen about the first XXX movie. Was deceived. Yeah, free skiing.
As for the rest of the cast, though, the first one, the third one, apparently there's some pretty big names. What's her name? the Indian woman whose name I don't know and I didn't write down. Is apparently
You're thinking of Deepika
yeah,
Padukone.
she's apparently one of the top grossing actors in India.
Yeah, she's like huge over there.
And unknown, I guess, like here.
Well, this was her breakout role, but both her and Nina Dobrev talked about how they came to this movie, and brace yourself for this because they came to this movie because of the strong female characters.
Yeah.
Which is true for their characters, but they coexist in a movie where Vin Diesel's character has an orgy with like 10 women.
Hey,
just because I
we
guess
don't know
he's
for sure. It was never on screen, and we can't say for sure what was done.
Some of those women were naked.
But that doesn't necessarily mean. And no, okay, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I think the implication is clear.
Yeah.
Like, definitely there are strong female characters in this movie, I guess. There's like, I don't know, casual slight misogyny of Vin Diesel flirting with anybody who walks and doesn't have a penis.
Yeah.
Even Darius Stone had a single one woman that he stuck to the whole movie, you know?
Yeah, and went right back to as soon as he got out of prison.
Oh, that's a dedication.
Oh, actually, not as soon as he got out of prison. The first thing he did was have a cheeseburger and fries. Forgot about that.
Yeah, but there is that like extremely joke where he's like, I'm going to need what every man needs when they've been in the cell for 9 years without release. You know what I'm talking about. Smash cut to burgers and fries. But the implication that he's making is clear to the audience. But like Samuel L. Jackson said, save the world, try to get the girl, and live dope while doing it.
God. I'm going to be hearing that on like 3 different podcasts for the next however long, just so the listeners know.
That was the best quote in the entire movie. That and, what was it in the first movie? Oh, yeah. Xander, remember what I told you before when you kissed me? And he went, never again. And she goes, I lied. And then they just ferociously make out.
No, that wasn't even half as good as the other one.
No, it's not. It's way more cringeworthy.
The only real interesting other thing that I could find for the third one was how they did the plane scene. Which was they had a very complicated... I mean, I guess it's actually not that interesting now that I say it, but they had a very complicated rigging system that took them a long time to create.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's it.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Oh, and God, I don't remember his character's name. The DJ guy,
Who?
the Asian kid. Yeah, Nix. Whoever played him,
Chris Wu.
Chris Wu, right? Was in a K-pop band or group or whatever at some point. So, yeah. Even though he's Chinese Canadian, I looked up. So,
look, K-pop is a genre now, and not like you have to be from Korea to do K-pop.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah. Just the country is still weirdly baked into the name, making it a little confusing there.
True. Fair. Okay. I see that.
But yeah, I mean, that's all I really had on the third one for the making of. Yeah, there's really, nothing else.
Except that Neymar had fun.
Well, that's good. But I mean, I think now I kind of want to just talk about mostly the second and third one, but just the hilarity of these movies. Like, we've been kind of not giving the movies the benefit of the doubt, but like so far, I don't think our dive into these movies has really has really indicated as much as it should have just how like not good most of the second one is, and the other ones are as well too, kind of.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. If I watch these movies, I'm not watching them for the plot. I did find your text this week very funny. I'm gonna quote it if I may. Gotta admire how totally honest they were with the second one, though. They knew no one was watching these for the story, so they didn't even bother trying to write a coherent plot.
It's true. I agree with myself from 2 days ago. The story for the second one makes absolutely yesterday. Okay, whatever. Every day feels like 2 days now. So,
well, given what we had to go through this week to get to this day, sure, yeah.
Also, I sleep intermittently now, so I just have no idea what time it is and what day it is ever. So, anyway, I mean, I agree. Like with myself. Just the second one makes absolutely no sense. Now, look, I'll be the first person to say, like, yeah, people are mostly media illiterate and, you know, walk out of a movie saying, well, that made no sense and it sucks when they put literally 0% of their brain cells towards even possibly understanding anything about the movie. And yeah, am I being pedantic? Yeah. But I also think I'm being right. But at the same time, goddamn, this movie, like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Like, the kicker for this, the biggest like example that I can think of is that one of the characters in this movie, I can't even say it without laughing, kills her father to frame XXx.
That's what got you, and not the like existence of a presidential bullet train that like shoots out of DC and goes where?
No, but that's cool. Like, this is like we're talking character motivations that made it to screen, and like you have a character who murders her own father in cold blood to frame XXx.
Would I?
Yeah, with the bullet train too, sure.
Also, how like the Secretary of Defense wants to become president by killing the president, the Speaker of the House, the Vice President, and like everybody else in line in front of him. And his motivation for doing this. His motivation for doing this reminded me heavily of London Has Fallen, which, before I explain Willem Dafoe's motivation in this movie, let me remind everyone that in London Has Fallen, the character's motivation for like committing terrorist acts and funding terrorists as an MI6 agent was because of budget cuts to MI6, and that if there were more terrorists, they would get more money. But in this movie, Willem Dafoe's entire motivation is that the president wants to be allies with more people and, like, go to war less. Like, that's it. Yeah, the Secretary of Defense is like, no, peace is not an option. And I'm willing to kill the goddamn president to make sure of that.
And the reason why it's so funny, though, is because, like, the president's speech that you see in this is so... It's as vague as it could possibly be. He's like, we need to lead with compassion and kindness and show the people of the world who the American people are. And then, like, a few minutes later, Willem Dafoe has the president at gunpoint. He's like, compassion? You want to lead with kindness? It's like maybe if there was some actual policy, like, that they weaved into the story. I don't know. I'm not a scriptwriter, obviously, but, like... You know, I don't know.
It's the perfect movie for the... It's the perfect movie for the end of the Trump era, where President Biden wants to lead with compassion and kindness. Willem Dafoe's like, no, not allowed.
Also, I don't know about you. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but the second one... It throws so many different factions at you from minute one that I was just like 20 minutes in. I was like, I don't know what anyone's motivation is.
Okay, let me go over a couple of my problems related to that. First off, Darius Stone gets out of jail. Okay? He gets out of jail, but Augustus Gibbons breaks him out of jail. Because first off, I guess... Okay, actually, let me go back. First off, I guess Augustus Gibbons doesn't work for the NSA anymore because the NSA gets attacked and only 3 people have the code to the elevator and one of them is Gibbons. We should also mention that I have this theory that the reason why the NSA is the agency of all goddamn things that starts the XXX program is because 2002 was very much in the wake of 9/11 when the NSA basically gained all its power. But anyway, because otherwise it makes no sense for the NSA of all things to have a secret super agent program.
And they send them to the Czech Republic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, what? Anyway, so Gibbons busts Stone out of jail. So we've got the NSA faction. And then Darius Stone is like, I've got some friends. We meet his friends, but not the one we want to meet, which is his girlfriend. And what is hilarious was we meet these people in one scene. He comes in, he goes, hey, where's the girl I'm looking for? And they go, oh, she's not here. She's down the road. And they go, thanks. We'll leave now.
They created an entire set, an entire scene for that.
They could have been done on a phone call. And then we never see these guys again till the end of the movie where they're like, we need some backup. And the guy's like, I know exactly who to call. And it's just these chop shop workers taking on the U.S. military. Not to mention the fact that at some point Gibbons decides to go confront Deckard, even though he knows Deckard is a bad guy, even though Deckard betrayed him in the past, is the reason why he's permanently scarred. He goes to confront him and then gets killed, allegedly. And I'm just like, why? Why?
We do get Gibbons' backstory for his scar, though, which, again, is cool. Like, and again, just to reiterate what we said before, like, the characters are all, I think, pretty solid. It's just that they're in these like nonsensical situations and scripts that kind of suck.
Yeah, also in the second one, since when was the Secretary of Defense in charge of the security proceedings for the State of the Union? That'd be like a Secret Service thing.
One of the weirdest things about the second one as well is like it feels like the two. Again, I forgot his name even though we mentioned it. It feels like
Steele?
Yeah, Kyle Steele and his like assistant guy it feels like those roles should have been played by at least significantly older people. I mean, I don't know how old the actor is, but he looks like he's 20.
Scott Speedman is 45 now.
So
he would have been
15 years ago.
30.
So 30. I guess he just looks very young. Huh.
He is also like, there are lines that indicate he's an up-and-coming agent. He talks about breaking Darius Stone's shooting record, which must have happened in the previous 9 years since Stone's been in prison for 9 years.
Yeah, and he has that line, like, I didn't always wear a suit or whatever, so.
And also, like, okay, the the kind of weird thing about Stone's line, like, I was born a criminal, was that for the whole movie, you think he's in jail because of, like, he actually got caught, like, with the chop shop or, like, as part of the gang. Because that's kind of what they're saying. But then it turns out he's only in jail because he tried to save some kids in a burning village. And, like, the general didn't like that. So he chucked him in jail. He's not, like, actually a criminal.
Don't they reveal that near the beginning? I thought they'd reveal it near the beginning.
They reveal it when they reveal Gibbons' backstory.
It was like halfway through, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, like, when he meets up with his girlfriend, she's like, oh, you're out? That seems a lot less... That seems like not as long as 20 years, you know? Like, she seems really contemptuous, like Darius Stone actually committed a crime of some sort, when, like, we find out he's in jail for saving kids.
Yeah, that's true.
So, also let's not forget the Shelby Cobra prototype jumping onto the railway track and then like wearing down the tire treads and then just basically becoming a train and like riding on the train track on its hubcaps. Like, what?
Look, I zoned out the last half hour of that movie. I kind of get what you're. I kind of remember what you're saying, but it's mostly a blur.
I couldn't see anything that was happening in the entire like final action sequence.
Yeah.
Also, like the weird implication that the vice president might just be dead because the Secretary of Defense is like, let's split up the president and the vice president, and then instead of like just shooting the president on the spot, the Secretary of Defense decides to tell the president his entire plan so that if the president survives, they can be like, yeah, the Secretary of Defense tried to kill me.
Don't forget my favorite, how you go into this mansion. XXX is taken to this mansion by, I forget her character, and the actor who played her. And XXX is in this, millions upon millions of dollars mansion. And he even mentions it. He's like, wow, this is, quite a house, quite a place to have grown up in. And yet, they're still eating Hot Pockets, like, in the freezer. Like, and XXX uses that because he fakes out their heat detecting equipment by heating up a bunch of microwavable food. And it's like, God damn, you're making six figures and you're eating Hot Pockets.
Look, sometimes you just want a Hot Pocket, okay?
No.
I thought that was hilarious just for the shot of Darius Stone jumping out of the refrigerator.
Yeah, there's some surprisingly solid like Tom Clancy style scenes with like secret agents invading a house and like, you're really like cornered. You feel really cornered because XXX is really cornered.
Also, let's not forget to mention a scene where like that girl, I think her name was Charlie, is like on the boat with like Gibbons, and Darius Stone finds them. I don't even remember why the hell they went to this aircraft carrier in the first place. Now that I come to think about it,
there's so many scenes in this movie that are just like, why are they here? Like the actual motivations for them to go from point A to point B like twist and turn so much more than I thought they would.
I was going to say when Gibbons, when Stone slaps the girl and knocks the girl out, and Gibbons just yells after him, "You should have killed that bitch!" And then, like, as you find out later on, you should have because she kills her dad to set him up.
Yeah. There's a weird like thing, especially in the third one. The thing that really made me think this was in the third one when Nina Dobrev's character kills someone for presumably the first time and gets really excited. Like, are you like a latent sociopath? Like, you just murdered someone for the first time, and you're like, hell yeah, this is awesome. And she does it again.
Actually, a random production note for that is that apparently Nina Dobrev is like a thrill seeker by self-admission, and was really sad that in the original script her character never got to use a gun, so she basically pestered the director for like months until he finally gave in and gave her that scene, and as a result she was the only actor/actress in the film who didn't receive firearms training because the original scene didn't have her using a gun.
Yeah, and it's played that way in the movie too. She loses control of the gun, and that's how she ends up killing someone. But her reaction is just like, hell yeah. And like,
I do like how these movies have less of a plan than even the Disney Star Wars movies did, and how the second one, in the first one, the name XXX is the name that Gibbons gives to Xander because of the tattoo he has on the back of his neck, which is the XXX logo. And then in the second one, it's revealed that now, I guess they've just appropriated the logo off of Xander Cage's neck, and they've got it like printed on the walls in their compound, and like, this is the XXX program now. And then they like retcon insert Darius Stone into Gibbons' history, like they have a past history. And then the third one like retcons the second one by unkilling Xander. And like every single one of these movies completely retcons half of the stuff established in the previous one, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then also like with the GTO, in the second one, Gibbons and Shavers make off in the GTO and they pick up Darius Stone, but then they give it to the chop shop, who then take it and presumably destroy it or sell it. And then like in the third one, Darius Stone as Ice Cube reveals that he's been keeping the GTO for 12 years, but he gave it away in the second one. Like, what?
Ice Cube is the real one who like hasn't aged in 20 years, like, or 15. He looks not a day older in Return of Xander Cage than he does in State of the Union.
There is a little bit of an implication that uh, the third one takes place, I think, at least 9 years after the second one, because doesn't Darius Stone's intro title card Suicide Squad splash screen say something like he's been waiting for 12 years for someone to dial 9, call for backup.
Yeah, I don't. I have no idea. I don't know.
Let me see. I know I wrote down that thing here somewhere because I thought it was a big question mark moment. I spent the last 11 years waiting for someone to dial 9. That was what it said. So,
Yeah, so basically, take was a real time thing in the movie as well as real life.
yeah. So, I mean, just quality movies. Just,
I mean, I think if we want to go into how well they work as a trilogy, what you just said basically covers that. Like they're these movies are all over the place.
okay. Hear me out for a second here. My friends know me for ironically claiming that Cars is a cinematic masterpiece, is a trilogy. And perhaps I'm just digging my grave here by saying that perhaps the XXX trilogy is the real model of how a trilogy should work. Because the first movie establishes our characters. It's established them. Okay, let's look past the quality of the movies for a second and look at the hypothetical here. They establish the characters. They establish them pretty well. The second movie, we've got one or two characters who carry over, and we establish a different set of characters. And the third one is sort of blends the two. And for this sequence, I actually think Return of Xander Cage does like blend the characters and the plots of the first two together. Although, like I said, basically every movie in this trilogy retcons the other one. So I did like the idea, though, that there have been other XXXs, like since Darius Stone was XXX. Like Zhang and Serena, and now Neymar. So, anyway, that's all I had to say on that.
Yeah. Okay.
There is apparently a fourth one coming, allegedly.
Cool. Yeah.
It was supposed to start filming in 2019, and that clearly never happened.
Probably still hasn't happened, given the state
No.
of the union and the world.
I mean, it also doesn't have a writer attached still, so that's probably not a good sign.
Hey, well, they can just do that
Probably.
modern movie thing that has really taken off in the last decade, where you just start the movie without a writer, without a script finished.
Worked for Iron Man.
Yeah.
That was like the last time it really worked. When they said they had two scripts competing, I almost thought it was going to be like a Citizen Kane situation. Citizen Kane, both Orson Welles and Herman Mankiewicz both wrote scripts for the movies, and then they combined the two into what is apparently one of the greatest screenplays ever written. Kind of thought they were going to do that with the second one, but it just went to shit and didn't work out. But it turns out that Simon Kinberg just wrote a bad movie.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, oh, that explains why the story is just so whack and like weird and muddled and stuff. But yeah, I guess it doesn't actually explain any of that.
Yeah, I mean, the second one, you said this off recording, but I got to agree, is definitely like one of the worst movies I've watched for Triple Play and potentially ever. But I wouldn't say it's the worst movie I've ever watched, because I actually got some weird enjoyment out of the second one. Not a lot, but definitely more than something like Neverending Story 3 or the Star Wars Holiday Special, whose enjoyment came solely from the fact that we spent an hour laughing about it on the podcast.
No, yeah, I put the second one definitely in my like bottom 5, maybe definitely bottom 10. I think movies that I've ever seen.
Yeah,
It is.
that's probably what it is for me.
Yeah, and we forgot to mention this, but it actually bombed.
Yeah, hard.
Yeah.
Not as hard as Rob Cohen's movie Stealth, but
Which is why I thought that was why Sony backed out, but apparently they didn't back out until like 2013 or 14 or something like that. So they were on board for XXX3. But because we didn't mention the first two are distributed by Sony and the third one's Paramount.
yeah, I mean, it's weird to look at the XXX series and look at how the first one, Jason Bourne kind of did this as well, but how the first one broke the mold almost and created this new
Style.
style, with the agent who's not an agent, and like again going back to the anti-James Bond thing, it basically broke the mold, created a new paradigm. But then like the later movies ended up just becoming like the things that the first one was trying not to be. I mean, the third one I would say is basically just a generic action movie almost. Like it kind of lost a lot of like what made the first one interesting, if you can even say that, which was like the extreme sports angle with the whole thing and the like, the main character doesn't care about dying. And he doesn't even care about the world. He's just doing this because he doesn't want to go to jail.
Yeah, and the scene in the first one one of my favorite scenes from this entire trilogy, and the scene in the first one that I think really drove that idea home is like XXX. The first thing he does when he gets to the Czech Republic is he goes undercover with a local cop slash secret agent, and the first thing he does is like he walks up to Yorgi, who is the villain of the movie, and in his club, and he's like, "See that guy over there? That guy's a cop." And they have him thrown out of the club, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." Like, that's probably one of the most interesting things that he does in the movie and really drove that idea home.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there are a lot of interesting things set up on that first movie, and to watch the second and third one just become like generic action movies, kind of what they were trying to not be, is in a way actually kind of sad.
Yeah, they definitely lost something.
Jason Bourne kind of did that as well. The first one was like, we're going to make this a really grounded spy movie, and then the second and third one kind of fell victim to the first one's success that spawned so many like knockoffs and copies in that same style that the second and third one became just almost clones.
I barely even remember the second and third one. The second one for sure I barely remember. The first one is really the only one I can have a recollection of the plot for.
The second and the third one I seem to remember being very joined story-wise. Then the fourth one was just, I saw the fourth one, and that was a snooze fest. Like I've mentioned on a podcast somewhere before, the fourth one didn't even feature the line that was in the trailers, "Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne," which was the best line in the movie, but it wasn't in the movie. Curses. Oh well.
Expanded XXX universe? I really don't think there is one.
Yeah, no. There was a video game featuring Xander Cage for the GBA. But that's it. That's it. So, maybe in the future we'll have a XXX4 and we can return to the XXX franchise to see if they kept up the quality through the fourth one.
Yeah, maybe.
I kind of have an inkling as to what the answer to that would be.
We'll have to wait and see.
Fourth one may never even get made, so.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, me too, honestly. Well, if anyone would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on XXX and Vin Diesel. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable and find us on every podcast platform at XXX, a movie trilogy podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter, TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching the RoboCop trilogy. But until then, the end.